everything else versus Bitcoin essentially gets spent and dies.
I want to be able to have reactive security. And I think AQUA Vault is today the most straightforward, easiest to use way to do that.
I will not be insulted by a clockmaker.
Overall, these kind of ways to make the network easier to both build on and interact with, I think is a really big deal.
If Bitcoin existed when we started Twitter, we would not have to go down the ad model path. I mean, it's simple as that.
Integrating Lightning into a social network is the killer app.
Hello, and welcome to the Bitcoin.Review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and Coinkite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run Coinkite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the cold card and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin.Review, the professional list podcast show. Is it a show or a podcast? I don't know. Every Bitcoiner becomes a podcaster in a long enough timeline. And talking about that, I have one of our greatest guests who aspires to be a podcast one day. Hello, Odell.
It's a pleasure to be here, NVK. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, sir. Mr. Pablo, hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me over. It's we've been on this call for like 15 minutes. It's already all downhill from here. It's gotta be.
I mean, we already had the people running Linux trying to reboot their laptops. Hello, Craig. Welcome back, sir. The person who really ships shit here.
Thank you. It's good to be back with all you other pros.
And Mr. Rob, aspiring to ship shit very soon.
Aspiring, yes. Imminently, yes. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming, guys. Talking about shitty Linux, I just got a call from Doc Hex where he was screaming about Linux for the last hour in my ear. He's like, I'm not looking for help or troubleshooting. And Vicky, can you please just listen to me rant?
It's just a therapy session.
It was so funny. It's like, the fucking USB doesn't work on this piece of shit software. Anyways, so we have another show. Coinkite is hiring a web designer. We need a web designer. I know it may be obvious to some people, not obvious to other more technical people, but it would be nice to have a very good web designer. We want somebody who's really, really awesome at design, and they can be even a slightly not that great, amazing at design, but just have a little bit of capacity of shipping their own shit. So if you don't want a nanny and you want to work in a company that actually ships shit, come join us. The link is on the description. How did I do there?
You're looking for a designer, but they don't have to be that good.
No, they have to be amazing. But if they're just a little bit less amazing, but can shit their own shit, that would be great. I will take a small 10% loss in their design capacity if they increase the 10% gain in capacity to do good HTML and CSS.
So you're looking for a C-subs that knows HTML, basically.
It's not a good representation, sir.
I'm looking at the tweet here. So it's also all of the meme domains as well, which that's like thousands of domains. It's like thousands of domains they need a design for.
Oh yeah, no, and it's like fucking endless amount of work. Yeah, you're gonna have some fun. All right, next is So since I have a great little panel here before we start with all the shitting on vulnerabilities, we've been orange peeling and purple peeling here in Costa Rica. And Jesus fucking Christ, all these apps are designed to save the world, save the global south. None of them work on 3G because they load the fucking JavaScript before they load all the UI. And none of them have anything local. So essentially, all the saving the world apps by all these white people in North America does not work in South America. It's amazing. So I really recommend you take your fucking team that builds these amazing Lightning apps, all these Nostr apps, okay? Come to the fucking beach here, okay? And try to do all the orange purple peeling with 2 to 3 bars of 3G, okay? And then you go and you rebuild your stack. But really, how do you guys feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm living in sort of
Africa here, where lots of people don't even have smartphones, I think you are dealing with a far better situation there if you've got 3G, people, how do you send a Bitcoin transaction with a feature phone? There's actually, I don't know if they're on the list, but there's a company here called Manchikura that is working on that. That's a different level. Like that's, so there's all kinds of levels in this.
I was going to bring up KG and his service that I can't pronounce, but it sounded like Craig pronounced it really well. I mean, I think that's the bullish fundamental is we're seeing more people building for their people, right? People that actually live there on the ground.
Yes.
I mean, I think, Moon with 2 U's is having a lot of issues with the high fee environment, but like part of the reason why they found early success was because there was Argentinians building for Argentinians, right? And that's why KG is finding a lot of success in Africa with Manchinkura.
But it's super cool, like, because like Central America is a little bit different than like Africa problems kind of thing. It's like their economical capacity is a little bit better, right? Like they economically can afford a little more, so they can get over the lightning fees, for example, right? It's like they can still afford that because say renting a board is $5-10, renting like a chair is that, or buying some fruit. And, because of Bitcoin Jungle, you can pay with Bitcoin anywhere in Costa Rica, for example, anywhere, 100% of it. Even if they don't even know Bitcoin, there is an SMS sort of local payment system that interacts with Bitcoin Jungle as well. But the cool thing here is because they're used to expats, a lot of them understand a little bit better English. So there is this weird mix where they understand that Bitcoin is great. Like the pitch is already done, right? And they are not seeking stable coins as much as other places, right? Because this place is not falling apart, it's actually like improving. So they are okay holding some Bitcoin for number go up. And I actually met with a guy who, bought a car because he had some Bitcoin from 2 years ago, kind of thing. Like, it's amazing. So, but the cool thing is that the mix of like the primal style experience of Nostr with like the custodial Lightning app solution, like it's like they just fucking get it. You set them up with it. They put a picture of their surf like board rental company, and now they have essentially a profile, and they're ready to accept sats to pay for it, and people can pay them with sats already. Like it just fucking everything's just right. If all these apps worked with low internet, like we're like an inch away from everything just exploding here.
I mean, I'll say that this is one of the beauties of open protocols like Bitcoin and Nostr, right? Which is, especially people in the Western world, we tend to get stuck in our own perspectives. We're like, this is the best way, this is the only way. But the beauty is that we can have many different apps, we can have many different clients that have different trade-off balances. And on the Bitcoin side, I mean, you mentioned the Bitcoin Jungle. Well, there's Bitcoin Jungle, the community, which is actually like people on the ground, like spreading Bitcoin education, getting merchant adoption. But there's also...
It's more like a bunch of annoying Bitcoiners trying to convince the locals to take it.
Yeah, that always is.
With love.
There's Bitcoin Jungle, the wallet app, which is built on the Glois stack, which came out of El Salvador, right? And they make specific trade-offs, right? They have a 2 of 3 collaborative multisig that holds the majority of the funds. They have a custodial Lightning wallet. And then you also mentioned Primal, right? And so Primal gets a lot of hate from Nostr purists because it uses this caching server model, right? Primal app is relatively new, but it goes to reason that in a low bandwidth environment, that kind of model is going to work way better than a pure Nostr client model where it's just hitting all the relays all the time.
Yeah, I know it's not that simple, right? Because like even with the caching system model, it's like it still needs to like download everything from the caching server. Sometimes the local relay actually does better. It's kind of all over the place. There's a lot of learning to find the right sort of path model. But I think you're bang on like the conceptually like what's going on. And it's actually happening. It's not like the usual sort of, a bunch of Bitcoiners sort of pretending that there is adoption happening somewhere in the world kind of thing. There's a lot of that in the world. I think this was the first time I ever experienced for real. Like one of the fruit stand guys, like he wanted to put his whole life savings in Bitcoin, and his wife is like not so sure. So I'm like, I think you should listen to your wife, like how about 50-50 there kind of thing? Because like they all see stories now because it's been here for a few years of like number go up story, right? And it's not like they're trying to get rich quick. It's just, again, trying to not get poor slowly, right? And they get it. And because there is the gringo sort of variable here, the dollars do come in, right? As opposed to other places where there's like less dollars coming in and it's more like a local economy. Anyways, super, super cool. I think, I don't know, I've been impressed for the first time with like on the ground actual Bitcoin adoption that is not LARPing.
NVK, Johnny wants you to know, stop hitting the desk.
I can't, Johnny. I am excited. And I'm hot as fuck. This house is so hot. All right. So moving on to the next topic. Craig is a fraud in court now.
Right. Craig Wright.
Craig, oh Jesus Christ!
So
no,
Craig,
he's on
Craig.
the show. How can you do that?
Yeah, I know, that's the best part. So, Craig, the last show, I kept on being corrected every 5 minutes. The dyslexic brain cannot handle 2 last names.
You're looking at the man and calling him a fraud.
I know. That's why it's so bad.
All I can say is that hopefully in a few weeks' time, we will never have to think about the other Craig. We can just go back to everyone's name being kind of without these kind of things.
Thank you, Craig, for being so gracious. I'm going to just call him... Oh, Jesus Christ.
Faketoshi.
I can't get this wrong.
CSW.
I'm just going to call him Faketoshi. Man, like, what a shit show the trial is for the people like who are not on Twitter, which seems to be a lot of people these days.
Smart.
Smart. There is... The trial has been tweeted lively. And my God, it's brutal. It's so brutal. It's so embarrassing. That guy is really grasping for air there. Hopefully he's going to be dropping the soap in prison soon.
I saw some of the updates. He basically told his law firm that some documents were like forgeries, apparently. And then like they were still, the law firm did not disclose to the other side they knew they were fake documents. So like Peter was tweeting about that.
Wait, he said that they were fake? Yeah,
so for the people who don't understand, because they're Americans, in the common law, like outside of the common law 1.0, okay, not the common law 2.0 that America has, the sides have to like release all the information to each other entirely between the two parties before the trial, right? Like you can't withhold stuff. And I believe in the US you can. That's why.
No, I think we have that in America too.
But they withhold all the time. I've seen The Good Wife, dude.
It's called Discovery. It's called Discovery.
I've seen The Good Wife, okay? And in The Good Wife...
Not a documentary.
Okay. Anyways, I don't understand the American system fully.
I don't either.
But I'm just saying, in the British style of trial shit, both sides have to like disclose like literally everything. There's no withholding. There's no... Anyways, you can't misrepresent anything. It's almost like a pre-trial sort of let's wash do the laundry with each other. Anyways,
the more important aspect here is this is the first offensive case against Craig. It's done by COPA, which is a group of companies that went out and sued Craig, right? They went after him instead of usually it's Craig going out and attacking people with his bullshit.
Yeah, no, like it's one is very expensive, and two is done in a jurisdiction that is very unfavorable, right? If this whole thing was done in the US, it would be even saltier. It would be really fun because like outside of America, you can't sue somebody for like damages in the way you can sue somebody in America for damages. It's a many zeros difference. So I just hope that after there's this precedent, people can sue Craig Wright for all the money he doesn't even have.
Yeah, it seems like him and his backers are running dry on money, which is the single biggest bullish fundamental.
Well, I think the one thing that is clear is that if he loses this case, then all of the cases that he has against others are immediately lost. They are null and void, so they go away, which I think is a big deal, just right there.
Absolutely.
Well, the sad part is that, as usual, just the lawyers win. You know, that is true in life in so many ways.
Is there a chance that he could go to jail? Is that like in the cards?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, perjury in court technically is like a big deal, right?
Should we bet on it?
I don't know, man. I have a feeling that this guy is he's very good at getting away with it, with stuff. So he's gonna find some way of at least not going to jail. He's still gonna be broke. He's already broke. He's just gonna be extra broke, unless he can move the Satoshi coins.
Well, they're gonna have to put convicted fraudster on his name if he loses it. Surely, I mean, if there's
he wouldn't be running out of money if he could move the Satoshi coins. He would have plenty of money to do the lawsuit if he could.
I mean, he could even borrow against it. He doesn't even have to sell the coins.
Just sign a message.
Wait, isn't that like how part of the scam started, right? It was like he was in trouble in Australia and he was almost using that as both like reputational and financial collateral that he was Satoshi.
I should have done that, you know, like one day just go like to the bank. Like, look, these are my coins. Just show the address. That would be so funny. Can you imagine if the banker said, oh, okay, sure. Here's some money. Oh, if it was only like that to borrow against Bitcoin. All right, let's go to the vulnerabilities part of the show. Linux developers are in the process of patching a high-severity vulnerability that, in many cases, allows the installation of malware that runs at a firmware level, giving infections access to the deepest parts of a device where they're hard to detect or remove. So, I mean, I could read the rest here, but I think this is the part where I say don't use general-purpose computers, especially the Linux computers, as your hardware wallet, because it's really bad. You know, this is like Linux developers finally sort of like hearing this thing that is called the firmware that's below DOS, where there's a lot of shit that runs, like, you know, your drivers. Anyways, this one is brutal. And I think they're withholding some parts of the disclosure still because they're still patching. And I highly recommend reading this Ars Technica article on it that we linked to.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that it's very unlikely anyone's actually going to be directly affected by it. It requires some kind of strange boot from HTTP, like unencrypted HTTP server. So from what I understood from the article, that it's not like everyone should freak out.
Yes. Well, but you know, it's like the premise, right? Like there is this idea that like, at least I see around like Linux users, especially like people who are not super technical, they just heard that Linux is great. They just assume that like, oh, it's not Windows, therefore it's secure, right? And it's definitely not true. I mean, you could say that about FreeBSD, but we're not going to go there. No, I mean, like it's not about like fudding. This is definitely like an attack that's like, you know, like hard to achieve. But I think it really sort of educates a lot of people who are not super technical about how systems work and complexity of systems, and how you have subsystems that are like, you know, not designed for some kinds of security expectations that people may have. You know, it's millions of lines of code, right? And then below that you have, you know, millions of lines of code running on chips that, you know, and hundreds of chips, you know, in a modern laptop or Raspberry Pi or whatever. Like it really is a lot under the hood to be reviewed. And that's, and I'm going to keep on harping this for years, clearly, that, you know, the reason why hardware wallets like are so limited and have those shitty screens and have like, you know, are slow and all these things is because, you know, the best sort of like security approach to this stuff is like you make it as simple as possible. You run it as close to the bare silicon as you can so that you have less stuff running, right? Because there is bugs, there is all kinds of problems. And so if you have less is more in the case of security, right? The Java card industry understood this, you know, almost a couple decades ago now. And what they do is you have this like extremely limited system, right? The Java card. And you have this insanely anal API to it that doesn't allow the people building solutions around it to connect to it like in a way that's wrong. So they fare well in the market, even though they're not perfect. They are some of the most secure solutions out there still. I don't know. It's just, I just, I just wish people would read these things and sort of understand that, like, you just can't secure the systems in the way that people tell them they could secure the systems.
Yeah, no, look, I get it. I think that the sort of layman comes in and judges a system by how nice the UI is and, the number of features and that's the common way to judge it, not like how simple is this. That's not almost how we're trained to look at things, and it's a very different mindset. So I think it's an important mindset to have. So I agree with that. It definitely makes sense. The more stuff that you layer on top, the more likelihood that there is a bug, that there's something to exploit. It's better just to try and keep everything as simple as you can. And if that means that your competitor has more features than you, maybe that's okay, because at some point down the line, maybe one of those features gets an exploit. So, yeah, so I do see that point.
Yeah, it's just complexity versus security. It's always a trade-off thing, and it's going to go on forever, right? Because eventually we're going to have Bitcoin features that require a lot of horsepower, and they might not be available to devices that are more secure, right? Like it's possible. Or maybe we get vaults, and then you don't need to worry as much about the security of the device. Like maybe there is no hardware wallets anymore in the future. That'll be amazing. We can just make clocks and talk about something else.
Well, you would still need to interact with the chain somewhere secure, right? You're designing your op vault, but if you're signing the op vault somewhere insecure, then you're fucked.
Yeah, but the thresholds would change, right?
Yeah.
You would care less about the specific key.
Right. I think certain things, like just thinking about like the other kind of features, if you were having to pre-compute a bunch of things because you're using like CTV, that may be something that's outside of the scope of a hardware wallet. So you're going to try, like if your hardware wallet's the one holding the private keys, you're still committing to other transaction states, and maybe that's like a SATS link. Maybe there's other solutions and other like triple checking, cross verifying things. But definitely, as just talking about, like as Bitcoin kind of changes and updates, those are things that are part of the design space and considering of like, where do we set the barbed wire fence and the bunker, and where do we kind of have a more permissible thing, right? Everyone who transacts with Bitcoin listening in this audience probably has a hardware wallet, and they have some software like Sparrow that's talking to the internet that's on a lower security system because it has to talk to the network, right? Inherently, at some point, has to get talking to the internet. And there's layers of how you can complicate that. But I think the overall message, though, is that the illusion of just because it's Linux that it's secure is not a sound tautology of a loop, and holding private keys just in a plain Linux box that you pick up from Best Buy and run on your computer, like not advisable if you're talking about serious amounts of money.
But also at the same time, a bunch of us have been losing a ton of money running Lightning nodes, hot wallets.
Yes.
I don't even, at this point, the single best feature I think as a node operator would be if there was just like a big text on the top of my UI that just said how much money I've lost, because I don't even know how much money I've lost.
Are these forced closes?
Dude, one of my nodes has over 1,300 closed channels during its lifetime. I don't want to calculate it, but if I did, it'd be nice if it was just on the top.
So you're getting forced closed, like Justice transactioned?
No. Just regular closes for the most part. No, I don't think there's been attacks. I'm not sure if there have been or not, but even just normal closed channels, like that shit adds up. 1,300 closed channels on one node. It's a 5-year node, right? It's been going for a while. But also, like, I also don't know if I've lost other money besides that. No idea. Just kind of, you put it on the node and you just hope that it'll still be there.
I mean, self-custodial Lightning is such a bag of hurt that
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
I have such a love-hate relationship because it's a very useful, helpful tool, right? Like I take great benefit from it. That's why I run 5 of them for different things. But also it's just exhausting and expensive and just a massive mental burden.
Even on the other side of the coin here, like you have something like Tails, right? Tails is pretty solid. I mean, like it's really well done, well thought, but like it's still running on a computer that can retain RAM. Right? Like, you can have a subsystem like withholding like information in RAM, for later retrieval, right? Like it really is hard. It's a hard problem because the secret needs to be in memory in order for you to compute the secret. It's just one of those catch-22 problems, right? And who knows, maybe one day we get homomorphic cryptography, and then that's it. Everything is fixed. It'll be right about the time we have a Dyson sphere. So next, breaking BitLocker. This was bypassing the Windows disk encryption, which was after. So there was first was VeriCrypt, and then Vera.
No. Before VeriCrypt was TrueCrypt. Then it switched to VeriCrypt. Well, no, BitLocker is built into Windows, right? TrueCrypt and VeriCrypt. I don't think TrueCrypt and VeriCrypt were ever built into Windows. This was like Microsoft's. Microsoft did this to compete with Mac, right? Because Mac had whatever their built-in encryption is.
So the thing though is TrueCrypt, VeriCrypt were always the solution that people who had Windows were using, right? Because there was nothing else.
Yep.
And this is like, to say is abhorrent is an understatement. Okay, this is what they did. Funny enough, the secure element worked. Okay, the problem is the API that they designed around their secure element was retarded. So they get the secret to decrypt the disk from the secure element in clear text. So and the bus is very accessible. So it takes the guy longer to remove the screws from the laptop than it takes for him to probe the bus and read the secret.
I saw that video. It was like 30 seconds. And 20 seconds of that was unscrewing the laptop.
That's right. And there's been, by the way, like a hardware wallets in the market that we're not encrypting. I'm not going to get into that because it's just a bag of heart conversation. But we're not encrypting between secure element and the processing, right? Or decrypting the key. And like the bus is a kind of a big deal. And if you have your secrets just running around unencrypted on the bus, right? Like you just read it. Like, and you can kind of read it remotely if you have the right kind of leakage on that side channel, right? It can be quite disastrous. But it's just like another one. It's like, don't do this, right? Like don't use laptops to hold secrets. That are of no return kind of secrets. Like Bitcoin, it's not a password. So that was a nice one too. All right, I wanted to get you guys' opinion. That's why I added this here. So I was just thinking, like, remember the ORCHESTRA attacks that CKP? I always forget, HKP was describing in 2014 on the FreeBSD talk about like state actors just sort of, doing a bunch of sort of social shenanigans, right? Trying to add bugs to software and all that stuff, which they do. So I was just thinking, like, as the space grows a little, and the shitcoin environment always reminds me of how possible this is, because there's this like other 100 million people out there who I don't interact with, who had this whole ecosystem, right, of like shitcoin guides, shitcoin solutions, and everything else. The amount of like guides that could be out there that are just evil, like, just you send your, I know this one is retarded, but like you send your seed to this email for you to set up your hardware wallet, right? Like that kind of stuff. And like, the average victim is completely like, fucked with this kind of shit. It's just too easy.
Well, forget about the average victim. I mean, you don't even need state actors to do that. Like the average educator influencer is just releasing shitty guides all the time.
We had a version of this, right, with mastering Bitcoin and the libBitcoin library, right? It was like, here, if you want to generate a wallet, follow this tutorial. And then the code changed and it was using bad entropy. And people were just following the textbook. Like you bought a Bitcoin textbook to like do Bitcoin stuff. And then you follow the instructions and the money's gone.
Craig, you deal with a fair bit of users too. Like, have you seen any interesting guides that piqued your fancy of like, this is borderline malicious,
Yeah, I mean, nothing of that sort. I mean, what I will say is this, I'm not sure how many people are sort of aware of this, but we know Sparrow has a Telegram chat. Any noob who comes on there and asks a question, which clearly indicates that they are not an experienced user, gets 1, 2, 3 messages within 5 minutes, often gets a phone call. It is there are entire teams around the world who are devoted, clearly, because it happens 24/7, literally every day of the week, So yeah, I mean, the stuff is very real. I deal with it every day. It's extremely normal, actually. I haven't actually seen any bad guides. Obviously, I've seen lots and lots of bad apps. There's lots of bad Sparrow Wallet apps. I do tweet about them from time to time. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I see a bad guide. Part of my job is actually just going around and asking various domains and domain name sites and so forth to take down domains and take down apps and that kind of thing. It's just constant, and it's only going to get worse. So yeah,
I would say that Craig, though, is an example of the single lowest lift solution to this, or maybe not even low lift because he's put a lot of effort into it, but just he has such intense documentation and guides on his own website, which is kind of like, that's the most productive way of trying to solve or mitigate this, is you just outcompete them and provide very easy to follow guides on your actual website.
Yeah, I mean, the actual way to outcompete them is to make an app which is easy enough to use so people don't feel the need for a guide in the first place. That's actually goal number one.
That's true.
But also the gate is the SEO, right? Like if they never get to your website, they never get to your app, they just go Bitcoin wallet and they end up in a Sparrow lookalike wallet. That
Trust wallet.
I mean, like let's start at the fact that 99% of the people cannot check signatures, right? Especially detached signatures on a piece of software. So how it's just too easy to put a piece of software on a website that claims that is close enough to the name of the project, and then especially for signer wallets, right? And then if the device cannot check the integrity of the software and sort of put a warning on, money gone. And it's nice now and cozy because we're still a reasonably small industry, right? But you already see what happens to Ledger and Trezor in terms of Amazon or preloaded devices on eBay and stuff with seeds. As this space grows a bit more, it's going to be the incentive is just too high, right? To go attack this low hanging fruit kind of stuff.
MVK, I asked you for this product a couple of years ago, but now that we're on the eve of SatsLink, I'm curious. And you have the Binary Watch website, so you have all the keys, the public keys that are signing all this software. Is there any interest in a hardware device that checks signatures? I feel like that would be way easier for people, the average person, if they could just take the download file, put it on an SD card, stick it in their SatsLink, and if it uses Craig's key, it says Sparrow's good, then they take it back, they put it on their computer, and they do it.
Yeah, but see, the problem with that is this, right? First of all, I love Craig, so let's use a different example.
Which Craig?
Yeah, let's say for example, Bitcoin Core. Okay, let's say I put Bitcoin Core, one of Bitcoin Core dev keys into Coldcard, right? And now people start using Coldcard's list of keys as their heuristic of trust.
Yep.
What if that one core dev goes rogue and then he makes a Bitcoin Core version that increases the block size by 2, right? And he signs the software.
Well, you're not verifying that, but verifying signatures on your computer the normal way doesn't solve that either.
Well, the problem is there is no, in an anarchic voluntary system, there is no single source of truth, right?
No, but what keys are you watching for Binary Watch? You're doing that already.
Yes, but that requires people to go and follow that bot. That's a really huge burden, right? So only the nerds are doing that, and the nerds have the capacity and they're able to discern between having some truth and not and not having any truth, or having all the truth.
But I'm talking about this from a nerd adjacent, right? So it's to me, it's almost like Uncle Jim, right? You created the Uncle Jim bundle for me because it made it easier for me in my guides. And when I tell people just buy the Uncle Jim bundle. Well, what if that came with a SatsLink device that also verified signatures for the popular projects that we recommend to them, and then they can just do that?
Well, the cool thing about SatsLink is that you don't have to ask me. That anybody can write a piece of software and run it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're looking for a PGP keychain app that can run on the SatsLink.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that requires OpenSSL. It's not going to be on Coldcard. We're never going to put OpenSSL on Coldcard. Never.
I'm saying SatsLink specifically.
Yes, that's more possible. There is, I think, a subset of OpenSSL that runs on ESP32. So yeah, that could be done.
It's a really interesting question. I mean, I've considered many times, like, should I build the verification check into Sparrow itself? So if you have the first version of Sparrow, you can verify subsequent downloads, right? But obviously there's a risk to that if the first version's wrong, people will just go and verify it and it'll look good. But I mean, it's not an awful, thing.
You should do that. I like that.
Should I have a separate app that people can download that you can then use to verify every Sparrow? So you verify that app once and then you can just use it to verify everything, right? I could build that, but ideally somebody else should build that, right? Because what you really want is it not to be me, right? You want to have an independent guy.
No, but signature verification doesn't protect people from you. Like, that's not the threat model. It protects from the man in the middle.
But Matt, who chooses the keys?
Craig does. It's not protecting against Craig. Like, when you verify signatures, you're not protecting against the maintainer. You're protecting against someone slipping a malicious package in between you and the maintainer.
See, for example, let me maybe give some of the dynamics on Binary Watch, right? So first, why is it not open source server, right? Well, because we don't want the bad guys to know the timing in which we check the binaries and all that stuff. And two is because, like, why it is just like a Twitter account and like run by us, right? Because this interests us and is our source of trust, like for ourselves, right? So we built it for ourselves to go and check those things for us because we use a lot of those software, right? Is it great that people do that, like follow it? Yes. Should more people follow it? Yes. But ideally, they get inspired and they go build their own. What we need is multiples. We need multiple people attacking this problem with their own code, okay? Because this is the classic cat and mouse problem with attackers, like this specific problem, right? Like, and again, and the other issue is that, like, if I build a fake website for a project that does not attest firmware, right? I can put the signatures there. I can create a new account, right, on Proton Mail or something. Create a valid signature. Put it there. Okay, it's just the names are close enough, right? And people will download that because it's better SEO or something, right? And the issue is that, like, people need to learn to do that, or the device needs to do it for them. Ideally, the device does it for them.
Craig having the previous version verify the signature of the next version fixes that. It mitigates that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So one of the things you can also do is then just, well, why doesn't Sparrow just have an update function, right? And not an automatic update function, but just an update function, right? Now you're starting to get into some interesting areas. Now you're trusting Sparrow to go off and download the right version. What happens if there's a man-in-the-middle attack? All kinds of things could happen there. I'm actually interested to know what people want. That's
there's a project here by Fran here in Software Engineering that he's working on a project. It's called Substore, and the basic idea is to leverage Nostr and the Nostr graph to do App Store distribution, which is going to check signatures for the binaries with the NPub, with the key of the author. And one of the cool things is that because it's Nostr, it can leverage the Web of Trust. So you search for Sparrow, there are 1,500 clones of Sparrow with all kinds of malware. Which is the real Sparrow? The Sparrow that the people that you follow, the people that you already trust in some way, is the one that they are using. So there are a bunch of other Craigs, Craig Ross and Craig Wrights, all kinds of Craigs, and you find the real Sparrow. You check the signature, and it's all happening naturally without any kind of hierarchy.
That I would highly discourage you to have updates, like auto updates. That's a major like security hole, like because we seen this with Electrum, right? Like somebody now your server that serves the update is a major honeypot, right? Like it's a major target because you would it already is, you could say, because it's serving the binary, whatever, right? I think yours is on GitHub, but still, But the problem is once it's automatic, now it's like you just up the interest on that server by 1,000, right? Because if they just change the firmware binary there, like boom, like they will infect like a ton of people.
For what it's worth, Wasabi does that.
Yeah, you really don't want to do that. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, and then the other question is, do I put this onto an app store? So last weekend I had to talk to the admins at, I think, FlatHub and whatever the Snap Store one is, because there was a rogue, malicious, presumably malware Sparrow Wallet that somebody in Russia had created and put up onto both of those. So now the question is, like, do I go on the Mac App Store? Like, then I am trusting Apple. Apple's now, I have no more control of that, right? It's an interesting question, though, because you could say, well, Apple, they're not so bad. But on the other hand, I don't think that's a great idea because...
Craig, I think we talked a little bit about this, right? Like, if we live in the fiat world and we have to do some fiat problems. I mean, like, I commend you for not participating, but like trademarks do resolve that problem, right? You fucking send a letter to Apple, they'll take it down. I understand not wanting to do that. That's very fair sort of thing. Like what some with a lot of projects do is create like a little foundation or something, and all that they do is just handle that. So it's not you who just want to write software and fuck all this shit, right? But another thing you can do is you could maybe just release an app that does nothing. It's just a link to your website.
I was about to say that. There should literally just be a placeholder app and download and be like, if there is no app, just be like, if you download one, it's a scam.
Yeah. I mean, realistically speaking, in the real practical world, there is really 2-3 places where you really have to defend, because that's where the majority of the eyeballs are at, right? The rest of the stuff is all slim pickings. And that is the reason why the bad guys really go after Google Play Store and Apple, right? Because that's the majority of the people. So, maybe releasing an app there and just saving the namespace, it's a solution. Is it perfect? No. Will other people still try to release a wallet with a slightly different name or something? But now you're claiming impersonation and the fiat games, right? And you have more protections. But
anyway, yeah, thanks. No, look, I am looking into the meat space stuff now. It is becoming more real for sure. I'm still not convinced about putting Sparrow onto an app store. I mean, the idea of putting a sort of empty app there is an idea. It seems a bit odd, but you could. I don't know. I kind of like the decentralized nature of the internet, and app stores are just these big centralized, it doesn't sit well with me. I don't know what I can say, but it is one of those open questions, and I like to always survey people because, you can have different views on it.
Yeah, I mean, there is no simple answers. That's the reality of all this stuff, right? And, and the simple answers are all like, walled gardens. Like people love to shit on Apple, including me, about this. But, like when you have, 30-40% of the total users of phones in the planet, right? And you have all these people hitting your support of issues, and you have grandmas being like robbed, and you have whatever. Like, I mean, it makes sense, right? That they want to have a walled garden and like they want to defend the experience of their platform, right? Is that wrong from a freedom perspective? Absolutely, right? But still, like, I understand, aside from the nefarious profit bullshit that they have with the 30% of the app, whatever, still, like, there is an argument to be made about keeping people safe who don't know better and, from the perspective of no freedom, right?
Which is why I think it's a great feature when a app verifies the signatures of the next update.
I mean, we could.
It's a nice middle ground, right? Like most people have Apple and Google verify their signatures for them. Well, it'd be nice if my previous Sparrow install did it, because if I'm onboarding someone, I can make sure they install a good Sparrow version in the beginning where it's from Craig, so only Craig could be the one rugging them.
Yeah.
And then after that, every time they update, they know their previous version checks it, because I know they're not going to actually verify the signatures, even though Craig has a great guide on his website where you can go through the process of verifying signatures on all the different platforms.
Doesn't like Graphene have a feature where like once you securely install one Graphene, it will validate other Graphene phones?
It's even cooler than that. You don't actually need you can have any Android phone that's not running Graphene. You just install that app and then you do it through QR codes and it verifies the Graphene install. So you don't actually need an existing Graphene device. You just need an Android device.
Many, many years ago, This was like first version of Cold Card. I thought about just putting a list of like the hash of like a bunch of software in it. So at least you have a list of hashes you could just compare on screen. Like, especially for core at the time, you know, we were looking at UASFs and all kinds of shit. So like I just wanted to have, but and I have never come to like I want to say like a complete thought on this in order to build something. But you know, maybe on SatsLink makes sense, man.
SatsLink could do it with QR codes, actually, now that we're talking about the graphene stuff. Like, you don't even need to take the install and put it on the SD card. You could just have the machine hash and show the signed hash as a QR code, and then have the SatsLink scan that.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, right?
It's tricky. Interrupt between, you're going to need to have things generating a QR that you have to trust to read the QR.
Right, because the QR code could show the correct one. And
No. The best scam is to just show the signature on the website. Like, look, this is the real signature.
SD card works, though. You put the actual file on the SD card that you're going to install.
Now, but then you have to have all the stack to do that checking, right? Like, these things are not simple, but it's funny enough, like Apple, Microsoft, all these companies do this right between their devices so that, you know, nobody's stealing their software kind of thing. But yeah. Okay, Matt, we're going to look into that.
Sweet.
I will too.
Thanks, Craig.
And then Craig is going to make a barbecue QR for us with the
Are we at the stage of the show where we make feature requests for Sparrow?
That's right. Wait, no, we should wait for the Sparrow.
Ready?
The Sparrow entry is coming. We just haven't made it's almost an hour in. We haven't got to the software updates. All right, Mastodon critical vulnerability, remote user impersonation takeover. Mastodon is a shitcoin. There is no signatures. You don't own your ID. You know, like, as one of my competitors that I didn't know host the content can attest to this, I deleted his account on my Mastodon instance. So benevolent dictatorships are not a good solution for free speech.
Especially when the dictator is not even benevolent. So
that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Just a dictator.
Just a dictator. You know, it's kind of like El Salvador. But anyways, moving on to don't use Mastodon. There is Nostr now. Much better discoverability. It's just like a search engine. So many jokes here. Anyways, all right. Bitcoin software update. Net enable V2 transport. Merging to Core. It's going to become also default. That's great. So now your Bitcoin Core client can talk encrypted with another Bitcoin client default.
We can hear you typing, Rob, and MDK stopped slamming on the table.
It's not a table anymore. It's the arm of a sofa. All right.
Johnny's begging.
John is begging. Sorry, Johnny. It's the heat, man. My compute is a little overheated too. All right. So Sparrow Wallet. Output reordering. Improved transaction tree labels. New features allow non-randomized input-output reordering. Moving on. Just kidding. Greg, do you want to talk about this update with us?
Happy to. So, I mean, Johnny has put in this sort of input-output reordering. I actually consider it very much let's call it an extremely minor feature that nobody should really use. You should just rely on randomized input and output orders because that is the best way to stay private. There are some very niche use cases, usually for devs trying to construct certain transactions, test certain things out, that might want to be able to reorder their randomized inputs and outputs. But it's like, I didn't even put it in the sort of headline release notes for this release because it's really just not something that the majority of people should be doing.
Is this for the sat dick butt people so that they can have their first output be not lost?
Be the dick butt.
It sounds like he was dancing around that.
Yeah, it's the dick butt output.
Yeah, I mean, for sure they will use it. I don't really care about it. If they want to use it, they can. I built it for myself because I had a bug in the transaction diagram. And I just, I was sitting there and kept hitting to create transactions to try and reproduce the bug. And I was just getting annoyed. So eventually I decided to add it. I've added it in a way that you can't even really see it. Like it's not like a little arrow pops up where you have to kind of click up and down and all of that. So you kind of, it's really quite hidden in the UI. And I think that's right, because, people, as I said, people shouldn't really be using it unless they're very specifically wanting to do this one thing. Sparrow has always been keen to allow people to edit transactions in any way that they want to. It's always been kind of there, edit any field that you want, you can RBF any input, you can change the relative lock time. Almost nobody ever uses these features. Rob will use them.
Yeah,
I do.
That's kind of the level at which you need to be. Reordering your inputs and outputs is at that level. There's not a reason not to do it simply because ordinals folk like doing it. That's a bad reason to not build things, is because people you don't like might use that feature. It's just a really dumb reason to limit yourself.
I totally agree.
Oh, I'm with you there. I really don't care. It's like people are going to do all kinds of stupid shit. Let them do it.
Yeah, that's fine. But that's why you added the feature, though.
Well, it's really not. I did have a bug. I added it last year. But yeah, anyway, people will think what they will think. It is what it is.
How many cats, Craig? How many cats?
Listen, this is for me, Sparrow is the first in class, power user wallet in Bitcoin. Without a doubt, it's what a lot of people use. It has the most advanced feature set, the most customization, the best UX that balances the really tight rope of informing consent of users as they go through these really complicated things and giving them the ability to do so. And the idea that you'd get any guff because people want to use your software in a certain way. I saw that on people on a bunch of keyboard warriors who are trying to tell you as a free open source dev how to spend his time. Absolutely insane. So even if the dick that people are going to use it, do you want Sparrow to be a powerful, useful wallet, or do you want a culture what's the most important thing here? Having really great software that can do really custom expressive things, or making people on Twitter feel really, really good about themselves in a culture where that doesn't matter?
Really, Rob is just another original apologist, as the people who own one sat on the internet say, you're just breaking Bitcoin.
Anywho, some other useful features on this, which actually people might want to use, are the improved labels in the transaction tree, which is quite nice because you can see a little bit more about what your transaction's doing. And you can also, the transaction tab itself loads a bit faster. So there's various small things in this. It was one of those releases which had a whole bunch of little things. But this is a good release, actually. This is one release, maybe the first one I've ever had, where there haven't been any bugs. I can even say today, no real bugs that I can think of. So to many years, it's nice to get to that point where you can kind of look ahead and not be trying to fix things.
Congrats, Craig, but I think you jinxed it.
It's over.
I think I did. No doubt somebody's going to report something on GitHub tonight.
Aren't ordinals a bug on Bitcoin or something? Well, thanks, Craig, in getting this in before the halving. I think they're going to be very happy because they want their special sats. All right, HWI version 2.4.0 added support for Trezor Safe 3. It's really first Trezor Safe. Support for Python 3.12. Improved handling for invalid descriptors and ledger devices errors. Question, are you upgrading HWI in Sparrow to 2.4?
Already done. So there will be support for the Trezor Safe 3 in the next Sparrow release.
All right. libwally-core version 1.1.0 added PSBT, allow extracting partially finalized transactions in wallet. I'm not going to read everything. These are long function names. It's great. BDK version 1.0 alpha 0.5. This release introduces block by block API to support BDK.
Yeah. The other one too, there's the database support, which is really nice because right now up to this point, it's just instantialized in local memory. And if you shut it off, or you lose the local server, whatever, it's just gone. So I've been circling around the park trying to find Steve Myers to talk to him too, but getting more proper database backend functionality so you can have all your BDK stuff be stateless as an operation and just talk to a database when you need to, which is much better than just by default right now, it just stores it as like a flat file, like on the server. So getting that better for more production use.
Because you guys are at the Bitcoin Park, you can just probably go get him downstairs.
That's exactly
get
right.
him to come and talk about it. Yeah, people should check out the Bitcoin Park. Very cool. BlueWallet version 6.5.1, 6.5.0. Added external individual private keys for addresses. Support more wallet export files from code card. Add crash detection on Watch OS app. And remove Tor. Like, what the fuck? Nunchuk Android version 1.9.40 added the ability to cancel already broadcasted transactions via RBF, option to get reservation paths for each receive address, and they added a few other features. Parmanode. You can now import an existing Bitcoin Core installation or detailed Parmanode instructions, compile Bitcoin yourself, then import the binaries into Parmanode configuration. Timechain Calendar. I don't know too much about this project. I don't know if anybody does here.
It's the calendar that shows the block height and a bunch of stats.
Oh, that pretty one, the circular one, right?
Yeah, the circle one. Yeah.
Okay, that's a cool one.
In Timechain, that does great work. That whole circle showing like the halvings and the blocks and everything. Yeah, it's great UI.
Clark Moody dashboard version 2.0 beta. Sign in with Nostr, new block size module, choose theme from among 10 presets, 2 new modules for ordinal inscription stats, and not data parity version 1. So
it's very normal mempool. It's a very normal, healthy size mempool.
Yep.
Yeah, when is he going to increase his mempool size?
Your partner in crime does a lot of mempool shaming, and that's not acceptable.
It's completely useless stats as a result. Marty was reading those stats thinking that they mattered for a while. I think he still does it. I have to correct him every fucking week.
Listen, to each their own mempool. Okay, we don't discuss mempool size on the show. This is a family show.
Yeah, but who cares how many transactions are in Clark's mempool?
It's a very normal mempool, Matt. It's a very normal mempool.
Exactly. That's kind of the whole point of mempool.
Is his teeny weeny 300 meg mempool?
He is the perfect average. He is an average mempool.
It's what you can expect to have on your own mempool. So in that sense, it's relatable.
No, I'm running a 2 gig mempool.
Matt, he clearly delivers with his little mempool. You use his dashboard all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Geyser version 0.6.7 exclusive rewards, double denomination sats USD, seamless reward flow. Project Spotlight, Tor Connect. Tor Connect is a simple app which runs the latest stable release of Tor. The point of Tor Connect is to make running Tor on your Mac, creating, managing hidden services for Bitcoin Core easy for anyone. Why don't people just use Brew? Brew services start Tor. There really is nothing else, and it's just super easy. You don't want a CUI for Tor because you're going to probably screw yourself.
I will say, just while Tor's is the topic, their proof of work edition that they added to deal with the DDoSes, it seems to be helping a lot. I was a little bit, I don't know. I appreciate the Tor folk, everyone maintaining that project. But I was starting to, get a bit disenfranchised with the trade-off models they made in terms of trying to deal with the DDoS. It was basically just centralized ban lists. But this proof of work thing seems to be paying dividends. The performance just across the board has seemed to be a lot more reliable and just better.
Well, what probably happened, Matt, is that they knocked out all the zombie bots that were sort of causing issues. And, soon enough that somebody has enough sort of interest,
they'll figure it out and come back. Yeah.
Dude, they'll just run it on Amazon. Remember, the spooks can do Amazon without budget. Can you imagine having a CIA credit card so you don't have to go through the back door? That'd be pretty cool.
You want to talk about the spooks in RHR? One of the best RHRs of all time was when I told Marty live on air who funds Tor. He had no idea.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I the best thing that the NSA ever did is say that the Navy has NIST. You know what I mean? It's it must be separate. Anyways, somebody should really make a NIST ad video with like in the Navy. Anyways, Matt is just shaking his head through most of the show. BitEscrow beta API launch. Bitcoin can now physically change hands like cash or gold coins. That's Dosh. It's like some Bitcoin app that loads Sats cards. I haven't played of it yet, but it looks cool.
Is that using the BitEscrow or is that a separate project?
Separate.
Okay.
It's just one after the other here. I'm dealing with like Johnny's notes here. Just kidding, Johnny. They're great. When in doubt, blame the producer, right? Like that's how it works.
You just went from one project to the next and just kept reading the notes like it was the same project.
Dude, like it's hard, okay? Like it's hot.
That's what I was trying to follow.
I don't know how people work here, man. It's like my brain is definitely working in different, like it's like skipping cycles or something.
Yeah, so to be clear, BitEscrow has nothing to do with Bitcoin physically changing hands like cash or gold coins.
That's what I was trying to follow along. It was one long sentence.
Like a literal physical escrow.
Like it just kept on going. The sentence just kept on going into the next project.
You give the Sats card to this guy that is just standing there.
That's right.
Yeah. It's just Rodolfo in a trench coat. He just hands you a Sats card.
Man, I can't imagine wear a trench coat here. It'll be very hot. I'm shirtless already. Citrea introduced Bitcoin first ZKP rollup aimed at scale Bitcoin while maintaining its security and decentralization. Do they need anything, or are they just using like BitVM or something like that?
So they're using BitVM. They're the first ones making a big announcement, and from the conversation, because I got tagged into a couple of them yesterday, it's unclear what they've actually done versus what they just took from the. I haven't, like, the code's not open yet, to my understanding. They just kind of did like a big press announcement. Yeah, and so Super Testnet was saying that they basically took some of his code and ported it to Rust and added some bindings around it. And they were saying like they launched, but I think in general, layer 2s, I know it's been a lot of discussion from a lot of like crypto devs coming to Bitcoin. And I think that's kind of the precursor of what this ordinal stuff was like stuffing all this arbitrary data, is using that arbitrary data to do other things. Like it's just like people are trying, like there's multiple companies trying to build like zero knowledge rollup in like Ethereum layer 2s. And like layer 2s isn't really like, I would think, the right term in the sense that it's not like an interoperable protocol. Like they're just a bunch of siloed financial services, each behind their own kind of custody arrangement. But using BitVM is the ultimate goal and idea for it.
That's so funny. The shitty false people always do this. They launch a product with somebody else's code. It's just, we're going to open anytime now. And then if they see any market tick, then they rewrite the code and they make a single git commit with the new code as if they were running that code for a long time. Classic.
I don't know, man. It has very nice graphics and it has a Discord. So
it's real. It's a real startup. It's we need the kind of web designer, the one that fools people into believing it's like a good thing. If you listen, person who was making those websites, if you want a job at a more ethical entity, come work for us.
Baseless, though.
Baseless.
Yeah. I'm looking at the docs. There is no code yet that I see on here.
TBD. But if the market catches up on it, it'll definitely be open source. Like all you need is a week to rewrite it, right? Anyways, classic. All right. Privacy software. Unleashed.Chat version 0.1.13. It was not me, Matt. You can now send a report when the chat bot is not performing as expected. Chat mode, UX improvements, re-enable Git repo import. Oh yeah, so you can import the Git repos to do analysis there. And other things.
The Git import thing is very cool. I played with that with NDK and some other of my code, and it's like very legit. It's very useful.
It was so weird to me because like I wanted to put like cold card repo into ChatGPT, right? And I was like, why am I downloading a zip file and trying to upload this shit? This is Git. You should just be able to give a URL and it just sucks everything in, right? Anyways, we can't really do git blame yet because the flag is set just for master, right? But like hopefully one day we can import like the whole history. That'll be really cool. Git blame powered by AI.
Oh man, perfect.
And when a drone goes and like explodes the person's house, right? Like it's all connected.
Yeah, which dev did the most bugs? Yeah.
Part of the reason why, if you have a new project that just sucks somebody else's open source code, you need to keep it closed until you launch, because git blame backed by AI could be very, very hard on you. Anyways, Simplex Chat version 5.5.0, private notes with encrypted files, media, paste link to connect, and they're doing a bunch of stuff. The app is improving. I haven't been using since my last encounter with multi-device issue. How's that so far? Should I go back to it?
You should test it in a low bandwidth environment.
Does it work? No idea. I'm still waiting for what's the name of that thing? Signal to have usernames any day now.
Yeah. Any day.
Any day.
Signal does work really well in a low bandwidth environment, though.
It actually does. I mean, that app is quite fun, and you know what? Their video calls also improved too, eh? Like it's impressive.
It goes right through the naval servers.
Yeah, I mean, you get the real bandwidth with the good cables, right?
They want to know that data.
If you're trying to dragnet shit, you want to make it easy for people to talk to each other. But you want their phone numbers, right? All right. Lightning L2 solutions, software release and project updates. Zeus version 0.8.1, standalone point of sale with inventory management, master contact support, import, and a bunch of other stuff. Very cool. Mutiny-node version 0.5.8, sweeping from Fedimint balance to self-custodial, and a bunch of other updates. Too many updates. Mutiny-startos, so now you can run Mutiny node on StartOS. That's great. Breez SDK Core version 0.2.14, updated. Boltz Exchange, Boltz backend, and Boltz web app updated. 10.10.1, a bunch of updates for the degens that want to do longs and shorts on some Lightning stuff decentrally, apparently.
No, they pulled out the Lightning component.
Oh, now it's just what do you use, Ethereum?
They called it DLC channels.
Okay, but what do you send?
I don't understand.
Where's the money, Matt?
All I know is that they're like, Lightning doesn't work for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's how most people feel about it. Loop version 0.27.0-beta, sweep batcher, a new subsystem was added that handles loop out sweeps. Okay. Torque version 1.5.0, LN P2P bot version 0.9.12, AQUA Wallet goes open source.
I'd just like to comment on that. The way not to launch a project is to launch it and then go open source. That is not the right way to do it. I really, I was sitting in a conference and they announced, and we've gone open source, and everyone clapped. And I just looked around. I thought, really? Like, really? You're going to clap for that? It's bizarre. Anyone out there who's thinking about doing a project, open source it when you launch, not afterwards. That's just should be obvious.
But that's what the cloners did. Like they had ads with our code on it before they had the source code open source. No joke. It's a classic. I mean, like people want to test the market before putting the effort into actually like writing the code, and they're probably using somebody else's code.
Yeah, I mean, that might be true. I think that often people just get so excited about doing the launch that, going open source is kind of seen as, oh, we'll add that as a feature later on. And then we can create a bit more talkability about it and that kind of thing. I really think it's just not the right way to do it. Yeah. That's my view.
Well, some people do it for the cookie points. Some people do it for the ethos, right? Like, and I respect how you run your shop. It's like it's the right way of doing open source.
The other side of that would be when you launch something open source, it needs to be useful by other people that are not you. So if your code is not documented, or if there is no documentation, if it's only consumable by you and your team, then open sourcing at that point is kind of meaningless. You can say that it's open source because you can go in and you can look at the code, but if you can't even, there are no instructions on how to run it, for example, it might make sense to delay. Like, I'm trying to take the other side of the argument. And
yeah, that's a fair way of talking. Like, listen, there's a lot of times that people want to just develop in peace, right? Like, especially like if you're really inventing something, right? Sometimes you don't want your process to be in public. It's not like some people are not public people. They will keep their branch private, right? Until they're ready to push it out. But like most oftentimes those people are not going to squash commit the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, and another thing too is like, most of the best open source is single source anyways, right? It's like a single dude who actually don't want PRs from other people. It's like, please, I'm doing this in public for source reasons, not for collaboration. It's like, please don't collaborate. Right? It's actually very, very common. Because, like software is really an expression of like how you think too, right? And you don't want other people's thoughts in your head. So like, please go away. And if you're trying to just fix a typo, like I'll do that myself. Thanks for letting me know. You don't have to like open a PR, as you all know.
You're explaining Craig, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's not just Craig. Like, Doc Hacks is the same way. It's like, please, like, get off my lawn kind of thing. I think like most people who are like really, really good are kind of like that. And then there is like people who are good, but are JavaScript people like Pablo,
I was waiting for it.
No, guys, it's, there is many ways to do this. And you can often tell when people are being sort of like, not for the software, but more for the cookie points. It's very obvious to everybody else around. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've thought and talked about around like everything we've been building, because we've been able to, on top of BDK, basically build a fully functional wallet. Like basically taking the Swiss Army knife and being able to stand something up so you have the whole end-to-end generating PSPTs, generating deposit addresses, generating transaction history tables. And for us, like right now, for the time being, we're not opening it. We haven't formally launched yet, but it's an open conversation on like, we've put a lot of time and effort into doing this and trying to run a business. If, we launch that, do we just kind of like give away a bunch of our edge and our time and effort into building this? So then any person could just take that, go lift and run off with it as a commercial business. Like I've thought about it. I think it'd be, there's definitely trade-offs about it. And I'm a proponent of open source software. But it's like from a business intersection, it's a tough thing to try and understand and juggle in general.
Don't you think that for a wallet you need to be open source?
So you can have the output descriptor, and with that output descriptor, you could load it into Core. So like if you have an output descriptor, you can actually take the actual skeleton of the wallet and verify it somewhere else with an independent software stack. I know Matt's shaking his head, but that is factually true. Like that is something you can do.
But it's one thing that you must verify each instance, each output descriptor itself, and it's different if someone capable can read the code and verify the code, that it will never create a.
Nobody, like, realistically speaking, the majority of the people can't read the code or verify the code. It's too fucking complicated to begin with.
No, of course, but if 10 people can.
Well, so this is the thing, right? It's like, where is the risk, right? So for example, with Cold Card, it must be open because it's a point solution, right? People will use that for single sig, for example. So they have to be able to verify the software themselves, right? Now, if it was a multi-sig in that sense, right? Like if you're using, say, a ledger, now they have a backup, but if you're using a ledger, which is closed source, right? And you're using a Cold Card, right? And they are 202, technically it's not as much of a big deal because you still have one device that you can verify the code and check, for example, the output, right? There is a lot of nuance on this, right? it really is not sort of like a simple answer again, right? And you can even sort of drag this into the libertarian problem, right? Which is like, the answer to the libertarian answer to you don't own ideas, right, is you have trade secrets, right? But trade secrets cannot exist when you're trying to make everything reproducibly built, right? It's literally the opposite, right? So, the libertarian thought was not around when we're trying to sign single sig, in Bitcoin. So it's all very tricky, right? Like we don't have very good answers for most of these things, and it's all new too. I think in a few, like a decade or two, we might get to a better answer on how to handle some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, what approaches the right answer, which is what you're saying, right? It's complex. There's a lot of detail, and the further you get down the rabbit hole, the more complex it gets. But you also need a simple answer. You just do. To have a product, you need a simple answer, and you need things that just make it 10x easier. So using a hardware wallet makes your setup 10x more secure than it would be without a hardware wallet. Using Linux probably makes you 10x more secure than Windows. Even though you have these weird kind of, bugs and issues, it probably is 10x more secure. Just because there's way less people looking to hack into your Linux desktop than there are a Windows desktop. That's five sort of X of it right there. So you also need that side of things, right? You need to have solutions for people who say, what should I do? I don't know what to do. What should I do? So, okay, start off with, a relatively clean computer. Maybe consider either a Mac or run Linux. Use a hardware wallet. And if people can just follow a series of simple steps, they'll probably be able to dodge the bullets, right? So I think it's easier, to get lost in details, but I think you also need to have that side of things.
I think you're spot on. There's also the issue of install base, right? Like the size of install base matters, right? For example, there's a lot less people using Linux desktop computers than there is people using Windows, for example, right? Like every call center, every bank, has a Windows machine. So and the incentives of attacking those machines to get into the bank teller's computer, right, through him pressing a button or opening a Taylor Swift porn AI .exe, right? Is extremely high, right? So essentially, the way Windows is deployed, it creates the incentive to break Windows, right? Where, some of these other systems, not so much.
Yeah, and I think if I was to argue against myself, one of the benefits that Sparrow enjoys now is the fact that it is relatively widely used. There are a lot of people who have looked at the code one way or the other to answer a certain question of it or whatever. And, that's a benefit to everyone, of course, because now the code is more highly reviewed. So, you don't want to be using something which you and only 10 other people are using unless you are able to read the code yourself. Then you're kind of really taking a higher risk. So, I guess that, in that case, you kind of want to go for the middle of the road, the best advice, and not try and be too cutting edge.
Yeah, definitely. It's like being cutting edge is for the people that can read the code. There is no way around that, right? And I think people need to respect the fact that they just don't know, that most people don't know. I think that a lot of times that's the issue, is just that people are unwilling to accept the fact that maybe they just need to either defer or use something else instead of trying something really stupid with their life savings.
Yeah.
Even dice, for example, right? Don't throw dice if you can't understand what's going on. Don't do things you don't understand, how they work, right? Because you're going to probably screw yourself before somebody even hacks you. Boy, we're not going to make it to the end of this list today, which is great. It's exactly what we want. All right, Project Spotlight for Lightning. Awesome Cashew. It's I don't know what Awesome Cashew is. A curated collaborative list of resources for getting started with Cashew. That's great. Superposition by Mutiny. I have not looked at this. Some DLC Oracle stuff. Sounds like Ben Carmen wrote this. Ben is the DLC lover. Notes Duo by Mutiny. Boy, they're being proactive. Nutband, experimental minimalist Python only user interface for Kush.
Node Dual is cool. Is you can write two notes. Like Matt and I could have like a DLC style, and we can write a note where one of the notes gets published. So the outcome of the bet is the publication of like, for example, I lose the bet to Matt, and then Matt publishes I won the bet or something like that. It's kind of cool.
Wait, but what's the oracle?
The oracle is so you are signing the notes, and it's like a DLC with the notes. So the oracle provides a signature that allows the right notes to be published.
So there's a third party that's deciding whose note gets published.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Nutband experiment. We talked about that one. Noster. Another part of the show. Just one or two updates. All right, I'm going to run through it. Demos version 1.7.2. Primo. They released, they revamped the Zaps. It's actually working very well. I've tried that. CivicKit Node version 0.0.2. Snort version 0.2.0. Amethyst version 0.83.9. Nosocial version 0.1.4. Loom version 3.0.1. Yaki Hone, Flash News and Uncensored Noster. Farmster, that's kind of cool too. That's a project that creates forms. Version 1.0. Make Prism API. Plebeian Market version 0.0.2. Feel free, Pablo, especially you, to like interrupt me here. And if there is one that you really want to talk about, go for it.
Loom released 3.0, which adds a bunch of really cool things. Loom is highly underrated because you have to install it on your desktop, which people don't want to do. But it's a really, really good client. And yeah, it's like a TweetDeck style. It's very cool. And I'm going to add my releases because they are not in the release list.
Please do.
Welcome to Pablo.review.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be quick. I released NDK 2.4, which adds something quite cool. So we have like in Noster, you can write any kind of event kinds and with any kind of format that you want, but clients need to render this data in some way. So within NDK 2.4, I added validations. So I am wrapping the event formats. So I can do NIP enforcement, and I can allow clients to choose to be able to ignore events that don't conform to a minimum standard. So for example, if there is like base 64 on where should be text or something like that, now clients can simply not even receive those notes. I also released Shipyard DVM, which is a data vending machine that allows any Noster client to schedule nodes, so they can publish events, and Shipyard DVM will publish them at the right time, which is kind of cool because this allows Amethyst or Coracle or any client that doesn't run a backend to do things that require a backend. So I think that's kind of cool.
So Pablo, I am interested on this for Unleashed. Like, how do we offer the API using DVMs without some major lift?
There are DVM platforms. So I wrote one. There's another one in Go where it takes care of all the Noster stuff, and you just wrap whatever APIs you want to provide. So you want to do image generation, you just write a very simple function that takes the input of text or event or whatever it might be, and provides the output with, here's the image, and that's it. So it takes care of the Lightning payments, it takes care of the eCash, it takes care of like all the heavy lifting for you.
Okay. Well, maybe you should just come work for us. Just kidding. You just have 50 companies to run. Awesome, dude. All right. So, this one's really cool. The StartOS Noster Web Wallet Connect and all the web the StartOS things that they're doing for Nostr now are really neat. I think it's nice to see. Like, Nostr more than Lightning is very interesting to have sort of like plug and play your own sort of infrastructure, especially for backups.
100%.
And having these little sort of like node on the box things can really help with that. Like, and also like you're not like losing your Bitcoin, like, you're maybe losing some data kind of thing. I really think it's a nice match.
100%. The guy from Nostrudel, who's here at Sovereign Engineering, he wrote the NSEC bunker for StartOS. So yeah, you're going to be able to just one click install NSEC bunker and have your key and do remote signing from your node at home.
Very nice. Very, very cool. All right, guys. Boost part of the show. Thanks for the signal, gents. Just woke up. Great trip. Viva Pablo. .review. Sorry, that was JC Denton, and the second one was KXOTK. User with many numbers. Man, I love these guys. I seriously think give up on Bitcoin. Only listen to the mainstream noise. I hear what you're saying about not having patience for idiots, but we all start as idiots, and if new people are coming into the space, we're going to get a lot of retard first. Truth. Piez, I salute you. Emoji. Z doxed. What you demand is what I supply. Plebe Hodo, best pod to listen bar none. Or at the bar with a none. I don't know. User with lots of numbers. I know, right? If we get Upcat before vaults, I'm flipping every table. Yeah, no, not gonna, my node is vaults first with something like CGV. I will purposefully not be I'll join the ossified people if vaults is not part of whatever comes next.
I have a feeling that's where we're heading. Did you see on a podcast with Vlad, Andrew Polstra said that he was thinking like the next soft fork would be Opcat?
Yeah, the Blockstream people want to push Bitcoin in a way that makes sense for them. I totally understand, right? Like, they're a company and have like preferences. It's normal. Like, people will have different things that they want. But the only correct thing that everybody should want is upvote. Correct?
I mean, I agree with that. I'm a huge fan of Ellen Hands, which gets you partially there with CTV. I think vaulting functionality, like we've talked about this, Rodolfo, that like Bitcoin serves at the pleasure of layer one store of value. And the use cases should be reflecting that, really. I mean, Lightning got 3 soft forks for it to get started. See, the 2-time lock up, like soft forks and SegWit to get Lightning going. And I feel like layer one has been outside of the focus when it comes to any sort of protocol discussion. Like, that's all just been sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been sort of pushing this now. I really think that this soft fork for Covenants is going to fail if the focus of it is scaling Lightning only as the narrative. I think people are ignoring the fact that most large economic nodes couldn't give less of a shit about Bitcoin scaling or Lightning scaling. It's all like cute and fun and all, but Bitcoin is serving very well an ETF. It's serving very well all these other things. And Bitcoin payments end. At some point they end, right? Because just economics of it.
Well, do you think the large economic nodes cared about Taproot really?
I think it was sold to them as if they should care, yes. I remember very clearly some folks who run large economic nodes institutionally sort of thinking that Taproot was great for them because it was sold that way. Taproot, I think, was nice, sort of like, it was a nice slip-in kind of bill, right? Like, it was sort of like people were not prepared technically to understand it. And it was just after other things, and people are still dazed and confused about UASF and all that stuff. I think the next fork is going to be very hard.
I agree with that.
It's not existential anymore, right? Like, it's not like Bitcoin is breaking because of malleability or, ASIC boost or something else. So, it's tricky. I think it's going to take a lot more work, and I think just Lightning as the narrative it's run its course.
I agree.
I don't know. What do you guys support? Like, what those proposals you guys sort of like.
Cross-input signature aggregation.
CISA, that's a good one. CISA's great.
But none of them are like none of the people proposing or pushing things or talking about it.
Is there code? Is there any reference code for it?
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, one of the reasons that I said there's a lot of talk about consolidation in wallets since the fees went up. And, if we think about it, imagine we had a situation where creating coin join transactions was like the only way that you could spend your coins because that's how you got your fees down. Like, that would be amazing. All of a sudden, we have people saying, shit, I need to go and find somebody so I can do a coin join so I can actually spend this DCA, small UTXOs. Like, I don't know. For me, that would be a really positive place for us to be. Because now all of a sudden you have people actually making the network more private for everyone. It just seems like such an obvious win, and I struggle to find the arguments against it. I mean, there must be one out there, but...
I haven't heard any arguments against it. I think the reality is there's maybe like 10 people on the planet who we would all trust to write that code and implement it, right? So it's kind of trying to find time on their calendars to like actually build the code.
Do they have a Calendar link?
Yeah. He's Flockster. You can do a coordination on Master with him.
That would be really funny. That was a rare case of Matt being very funny. Okay. The confrontation of physics has really changed the dynamic here. So, guys, this has been like a super fun, like lots of like great tangents, great conversations. We still have like a good half an hour here if we want to talk about things. There's a lot of stuff here on OpTech, which I'm just gonna, as usual, leave it as a wonderful thing on the people that receive this pod as a how do you call that thing? Substack. And show notes on the website. Any things we've missed or we should talk about that are very timely? Including the announcement of 1031 having accompanied the IPO. That's kind of cool. Matt, do you wanna talk about that? A quick mention of that. I think it's worth it.
Technically they didn't have an IPO, but they are traded publicly on NASDAQ now.
Well, it was a reverse RTO on the TSX and then moved.
And it was a SPAC first. But the boys at Grid have wanted to go public for a long time. They're finally publicly traded. It's been a massive, team effort making it happen. Harry over there, Trey over there, their whole team are just fucking awesome. So I'm really happy for them. And just personally, it's just pretty crazy because 5 years ago, me and Harry were sitting in a coffee shop and I was like working my shitty like fiat cubicle job. And he was like, asked my opinion on whether or not you should start a mining business. I was like, don't start a mining business. You're going to get fucking wrecked. And he didn't listen to me. He started Grid. And then we met on the tail end. And all of a sudden, like I'm a VC and my venture fund is helping him go public. And it's just been fucking 5 years. So it's super easy to get disenfranchised by like how slow you think things move, but we're moving so fucking quick. All of us are moving so fucking quick, and I think we're really changing the world for better. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I even lost a bet that I'm gonna have to buy a lot of their stock.
Yeah, don't buy the stock. Just stay on Stack Sats though.
That's right. But I have no choice. I lost a bet. And what else, guys? What else you guys want to talk about? Craig, what things you're looking for in terms of like next updates to Sparrow? I'm curious.
I'm not going to go into that. I'm because I generally, as you were saying earlier, I kind of like to keep the design space private for a while. The private branch. Rob, you want to jump in there?
I have a feature request.
Oh, we can do this a half an hour feature request.
Yeah, the next 30 minutes feature request for Sparrow. Being able to restart into Signet mode.
Okay.
Because the only way I can do Signet right now is using command line. And I've ported all of my testing from testnet to Signet. And it'd be just really great to have a non-CLI way of just being able to hit in there. I also noticed that by default, I'm not sure if this is intentional, to talk to Signet, there isn't a public Signet node sitting there. that you have to use private Electrum or local core node. I have some suggestions and possible options, but I could talk to you offline before I bomb someone else's server publicly to being the default.
Give him nothing unless he open sources his wallet.
Rob, that sounds like a good feature suggests. Please send me your public servers and I will happily chat to them. And I think that's something that's coming. So very happy to implement that, and it's really easy.
I have a feature request. Have you heard about barbecue QR?
I have not.
It's great. Actually, Craig, I did have an interesting mention to you. So we have found that with the 30% savings on it by just hard typing, right? The PSPTs, a lot of the PSPTs that people use would fit in a single QR. So that's kind of like a nice little anecdote there for you. We're playing with it a lot internally. Today I got a picture from the factory guys showing me that they started doing the test production run, which is great for Cold Card Queue. And as soon as I have a few units to send out, you are on the top of the list to get some.
Excellent.
And then you can play barbecue QR and grill this one home.
Here in South Africa, we don't call it that. We call it a braai. So I will call it braai QR, and I will give it a try.
Hey, listen, we can always rename it. It's okay. We get the domain.
What is it? Bribe QR?
Braai, yeah. It's what the barbecue is called in my part of the world. You come here, that's what you. There's been a lot of Bitcoiners that have recently been educated on certain South African terms thanks to adopting BDC that happened here a few weeks ago.
Well, yeah, how was that?
It was great. It was a really positive for a first conference. I was super impressed. The guys organizing it had never done anything like that before. It was KG, it was Herman from Bitcoin Akazi. They did a great job. I really must commend them. It was a very cool conference.
Yeah, I mean, we've dealt quite a bit with Bitcoin Akazi. We sent them a lot of hardware, and those guys are doing like really cool work. Like it's earnest. It's not like it's not for the cookie points on Twitter. It's clear, which is a really nice change. I mean, Twitter is becoming insufferable. It's always been insufferable, like here and there, but like the majority of it is becoming too insufferable.
Be the change you want to see in the world, NVK.
It's just getting bigger. There's more insufferable people.
Noster only. Let's fucking go.
So see, the mission is above my feelings.
No bullshit.
Here,
It's not about the mission.
Totally, absolutely.
No way. You're addicted to it.
No, it's we are there to disseminate Bitcoin and also to show them Noster, and we're gonna keep on doing that. See, some people just don't have the stomach to be on Twitter. And
no, it's important for the mission. That's why I'm on Noster. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be on that.
Speaking of BBB QR, that's the first fully open source QR code spec, right, Rodolfo?
In the history of all QR, it's actually better than that. It's public domain, and it is the first truly open source QR standard, not the implementations, which there's many. But standard itself, this is a big deal.
The other blue check on this conversation just pivoted it with
Thank you, Rob.
Some brownie points for you.
Just talking about free open source software, Matt. I didn't realize that was a problem.
Matt is clearly running from something. His past is maybe a little too colorful for him to stomach.
No, man. I respect somebody who sticks with their ideals. Credit to you, Matt.
I think Pablo's Noster only now too, right?
Really, Matt? Who runs the 1031 account for the team on Blue Check?
No idea.
Oh.
No, 1031 doesn't have a blue check. Of course not. To our detriment. I mean, that platform is completely useless without one.
It's becoming like you gotta.
And OpenSats doesn't have a blue check either. The best way to keep track of 1031 and OpenSats is by using Noster.
You gotta give it to Elon, man. Like the guy has really sort of figured out how to make that platform go in a certain direction. It may not be one we like, but it's not an easy feat. And like they fired 90% of the staff the app is working better and is going in a direction that they want to go. It's not my thing, but it is impressive.
It's a very clear direction.
It's impressive.
It's
impressive.
very accelerationist. I like that part.
It's
full throttle. That's great.
Yes.
Keep going. KYC. Let's go.
That's right. It's not just that. I mean, like, he's shitting on politicians. He's like, he's there. He's dog footing. Let's put it this way.
It's hard, but he accomplishes being the richest person in the world, and at the same time punching up to politicians. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. It'll be the demise. It's great.
Talk about Twitter and lack of nuance. Like, this is something that, like, it's missing. Is like this capacity of admiring an enemy. It's this capacity of like appreciating, like, like there's people out there that may be smarter than you that are doing things you don't like, but still be able to appreciate.
No, I mean, if you're
the cleverness
talking
of
about
things.
me, like, I completely respect his evilness. Like, that's why he's a threat.
I am not, Matt. You are one of the only people in Bitcoin that has nuance. You do understand that people outside of North America don't give a shit about privacy, for example. And it's true, right? Like, I mean, like, people here couldn't care less because government is weak here, right? And in North America, like, they can do things to you. Anyways.
I moved to Costa Rica with that thesis, and it didn't play out as I expected. The government the state might be super weak. It can still fuck you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, like,
it only takes one cup with one gun.
Yes. I hope he is lube. No, I mean, like, listen, part of having a weak government system is dealing with corruption too, right? Like, it comes with the territory, right? Like in the absence of power, some finesse does come and take over, right? Like, it's not like, some bonanza, right? Yeah. Anyways. Okay, guys. Rob, any updates? You?
Update on my end. At the start of the episode, we were talking about basically like hostile guides trying to drain people. So I immediately went to the Sparrow Telegram group and said, I'm new to Bitcoin. Can someone help me set up my wallet? And I only got one person offering me to DM them so they could help me out. So I think we're doing good on the scam numbers. That's a 2-hour sample size. I wanted to do the test. It's looking pretty good.
Weak. No, they must be off their game.
Yes, because it's like 50. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, no, it's funny. I used to be part of the Sparrow Telegram group as well, and you'd get the same guys like on the Cold Card group. It's like the same bots, very similar sort of like overlap there of scammers. But then it's funny because on some other projects it's actually quite far removed. I did not have any Venn diagram with those. Some heuristic for us. Man, Telegram is a bag of hurt. But no other app allows you to create groups that are of any reasonable size. And Telegram refuses to add some decent moderation for groups. I think because they probably profit from the scams.
And they also require phone numbers still.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure if you saw it, Rodolfo. Twitter just added a feature that if you're verified and the person you're DMing is verified, you can enable encrypted DMs now.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's very encrypted.
So you and I can do some encrypted DMs back and forth. Super secure. Super secure. You and I are going to be great. We're going to have super secret comms.
That's hilarious.
I'm going to send you a dick pic and see how long it takes, to... Actually, I'll send you even better. We can compare the size of our mempools under encrypted DMs.
Okay. Yeah, that should be in the encrypted DMs for sure.
And it's encrypted DM because it tells you that it's encrypted DMs, right?
Yeah. It has a little lock icon. It lets you know it's super safe.
Oh, okay.
But it's no different than the Nostr private DMs.
It's way different. You can see the encryption. The problem is that everybody else can see it too.
Exactly. It's not private. I didn't say secure. It's not private.
It's encrypted.
Oh man. This episode has been funny. Are you guys also experiencing heat? So, Pablo, is everything ready for Bitcoin Atlantis? It looks like it's going to be a big one.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be really big. Andre keeps adding more and more stages. So
Wait, it's a stadium.
I think he's the stadium is expanding into other venues.
Seriously?
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, a lot of people are going to come earlier. So yeah, it's going to be very, very good.
That's pretty cool. All right, guys. I am not going to hold you guys if you guys don't have any shit to say. These are people who ship things. So final thoughts, Mr. Odell.
Consider supporting OpenSats. OpenSats.org. Click that big donate button. We accept Bitcoin and fiat. And if you donate fiat, we'll convert it to Bitcoin. Stay on StackSats.
I did have the OpenSats update here somewhere, but I lost. It's okay. The people who the 3 people who listen to the show to the end already know where the OpenSats button is. Mr. Pablo, any final thoughts, updates? Go for it.
Yeah, I had a different one, so now I'm going to do 2, riffing off of what Matt just said. OpenSats has changed many lives, including mine. It really, really, really works because it works at the edges. So definitely consider donating to OpenSats. The other one, the one that I had before, is that for most people that are shipping things, we get stuck in trying to accomplish more and ship more things and fix the world and all these things. Family first.
Yes, don't. That's a biggie.
Family first.
That is a biggie. It's very easy to ignore your kid with a cape beside you as you're trying to record a podcast. Anybody with kids understand what I'm talking about. It is, it's do spend time with your family because time is more finite than Bitcoin. Mr. Rob, final thoughts and updates.
Final thoughts. Build the change you wish to see in the world and spend less time on Twitter.
That sounds like something like what's the name of that show? Like Miss Universe would say, like world peace.
Well, that's actually what I'm not sure if you could tell, but that's what I'm getting ready for my Miss Universe application.
It's working. It's working. It's great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Mr. Craig.
Yeah, I'll just I'll go on the OpenSats thing as well, but come at it from the other side. If you are thinking about building something, or you are you're working away on some project and you're wondering, should I be commercial? Should I be open source? Consider the open source angle with a grant from OpenSats until you figure out what your commercial angle is. Because it isn't easy to find a way through on the open source front. It is not a simple thing. And you may need time with your product out there in the market to figure it out. So a grant from OpenSats, the HRF for these kind of organizations, Brink is other one, but I mean OpenSats, really good option there. Just gives you the space that you need to get your product out there, to get some user uptake, to understand what the users might need, and then you can figure out what your monetization, if that's your goal, you can figure out what that is. So that's my message to the builders and prospective builders.
It's actually pretty cool because we've seen basically the incentive flip on its head, because a lot of times people kept projects closed trying to get VC funding, and a lot of VCs expected them to keep stuff closed. 1031 doesn't, but a lot of VCs do expect that. With OpenSats, we've actually seen people who had trouble getting VC funding because VC funding right now is incredibly tight and has been for the last year, and they open source their project just so that they can apply to OpenSats, which is fucking awesome. It's a beautiful incentive.
There is something like quite beautiful about like adding value to the commons first and then sort of monetizing it, right? Like, and finding a path through profit to exist, right? Because grants are not forever. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's very important for people to understand the nuance on this, right? Like, profit is freedom, and one way or another, you have to pay bills, and you can't just depend on asking people for like grants and donations forever too. I mean, you could, but like realistically speaking, it's a lot harder path too.
Yeah.
So like there is nuance, there is place for everybody, and there is no shame in like, going from one side to the other and from that side back to the other, right? Like you can start as open source grant person and go for profit, and then you can also go for profit and go back to fully open source grants. Like it's okay to change.
You can be a profitable open source project. I always use Sparrow as the example. You know, now that we have Bitcoin and now that we have Nostr, there's creative ways you can monetize that were not possible before. And Sparrow is an ironic example because he never took grant funding or VC funding, and he's got a sustainable project with CoinJoin fees. But to me, that's like the ideal model. The ideal model is OpenSats, you know, gets you going in the beginning, helps you like actually jump off the cliff and focus on this project. And then hopefully you get it to a sustainable spot. So you don't need that grant funding anymore because you can never count on it being there forever. And also it'd be great if we could get grants to new people instead of constantly renewing people.
You know, it's like the ones that it's like, you know, not everybody's in a position where they can afford to eat, feed a family, and at the same time write free code, right? So like, you know, grants or life circumstance really plays there a lot, right? And when you have a full-time job, writing code on the side to build something is very hard. And a lot of times that company is going to own your IP anyways. It's on the contract to sign. So be careful with that. Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to Doc Hex today in the Linux shitting hour call. You know, like for example, FreeBSD has greatly improved on the user space level. But the hardware support is very limited, right? Because there's a lot fewer people in the world that can write hardware support, right? That's for any system. And you know, FreeBSD is winning in certain categories like extremely well, but like you can't go in other categories because, you know, there's not enough interest for people to write that because, you know, Linux has all the shiny stuff, right? Because it has a lot more devs doing the user space stuff. So like we were actually discussing like how can we get more people to go write hardware stuff, and we're like, hey, you know, if we grow, we just go in and we pay people to go write like hardware support for FreeBSD, right? We're not at that size yet where we can afford the kind of people that can do that anyways. But so I was talking to Peter, like maybe we should start advertising on this pod for people to go after FreeBSD hardware support, OpenSats grants, until we can afford to help those people get there. We need the people who write the hard stuff to also look at these things, right? Not just young people who are seeking to still build a life, right? Like build a career, build a new startup, but the people who are on the other tail end. So like programmers, they're like looking to maybe retiring, and these guys are older. They do the super, super hard stuff. Like, let's be realistic. Most of the people writing, you know, hardware stuff are older. They are guys who grew up having to write shit in binary. And can talk to chips. So we also want to sort of like try to get some of those folks like back into the cold space and not just like having margaritas somewhere in the world wasting those beautiful brains.
This is also why like it's not straight up altruism. Like if you run a profitable Bitcoin business or any business that relies on these open protocols, by supporting OpenSats, you can actually make your business better and more profitable, and you get a tax deduction. Like, so if you're going to pay Uncle Sam taxes anyway, you know, give a piece to open source developers. We make it extremely easy, extremely efficient.
Yeah, listen, we're 9 board members, so like it's very easy to like at least entice 5 to say yes. You know, like and
no, MVK. The whole reason we're 9 board members is because it's supposed to have some level of friction there, so that corruption is kept to a minimum. It's the exact opposite.
No, that was a joke, Matt. That was a joke.
Yeah. Dude, you don't have to feed the fire though. Like it's
very
early on in OpenSats.
Matt,
you got to make sure it's very clear to people.
It's okay. And there is also like the committees. Like, so we're having like peers of your industry to come help judge your projects because, you know, the board members may not be qualified to have an opinion on certain projects, right? So the whole point of the thing is we're just doing this for pure masochism because we make like $0.
We literally make no money. It's 100% pass through.
Like zero. It's in the charter of the thing that there is no money from any grant to pay for us. So it's pure masochism. And then we go and we take pain from the people complaining about it, which I really don't give a shit because I don't make any money from it. So I'm not paid to give a shit. But yes, no, it's really cool thing. I don't want to toot the horn of our horn too much, but it really is a cool org. And it's doing a lot of good, and it's going to get a lot more money, and it's going to do even a lot more good. So yeah, and hopefully we're gonna have other countries at some point where we also have a nonprofit there, so you can not pay taxes in those countries too, and donate to good open source instead of enriching the government. That's the best part that I love about this. It's like, like instead of paying taxes, it's so fucking simple. Like the money goes to taxes you give to this org.
And it was a pain in the ass to get that designation, 501c3 designation. So like, take advantage of it, people.
It is the hardest part.
Okay, let's wrap. I want to get lunch.
Go get lunch. Bye, Matt.
Peace.
See you, man.
Ciao. Hey, listen, guys, thank you so much for coming. This was awesome. As usual, we just ramble for 2 hours on software updates. And thank you so much for everyone for listening. And if you made it this far, go listen to the other 59 episodes because there's a lot of hours for you to hear. Thank you, guys. Take care. Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.